Okay, good day everyone. Today we are here to discuss you the chapter 8 titled Biodiversity. But before we include to the main topic or the main description of what are the biodiversities under as well as its benefits into our society is we are first to introduce ourselves. So I am Cristel Marsigan.
I am Izzy Gabi.
I am Lamariam Samoy.
And I am Alexandra Tolentino.
I am MC Klein Moredo.
I am Daniela Marilan Dicho.
I am Nick A. Madrigalejos.
And I am Lance Denver BD Guzman.
And we are Group 3 here ready to discuss you the Chapter 8 entitled Biodiversity. And now, let's proceed with our objectives. So, for our first objective is to identify biodiversity and its connection in the society as well as distinguish the sectors under biodiversity. And the last one is know the benefits and the risks of GMOs. But before we include with the two distinguish or the distinction of biodiversity, let's first know what biodiversity is. So when we talk about biodiversity, it comes from the Greek word bios means life as well as diversitas meaning variety or differences. So when we refer to biodiversity, it is all about the genetic, the species, as well as the ecosystem, the diversity. So wherein that, when we talk about biodiversity, it is simply the variety of all living things and their interactions with each other. So we humans are considered as part of the biodiversity because we are living as one of the variety within the system or the biodiversity. And we are interacting with different species that we have our own genetics and we live in the ecosystem biodiversity. So it says here that biodiversity to the full abundance of variety of life wherein it is plant, animals, and microbial. So next. Um, so we have here the biodiversity and healthy society. So why does it states that healthy society? Because biodiversity secure the life-sustaining goods and services which provides to us. So this is where the sources of foods and livelihood we are getting. So the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity can provide significant benefits for human health. So when we talk about biodiversity, it is a vast constituent of all living things that is interacting within every day. So that includes why we are getting or having the benefits within our health. Now, so without a global environment that is healthy and capable of supporting diversity of life, no human population can exist. Therefore, next is we have included or the four or rather five sustaining and healthy why biodiversity is healthy within our society. So first is biodiversity support food security, dietary health, and livelihood sustainability. As what I have said earlier, biodiversity sustain the sources of um, food consumers, we consumers consume. And that includes the plants wherein naturally doon tayo kumukuha ng ating kinakain araw-araw. So that includes the vegetable, the fruits, and other healthy or edible plants that we are consuming every day, as well as dietary health. When we talk about plants, they are naturally containing nutrients that is helpful within our body. So that includes the dietary health because we are consuming natural foods and not those preservatives that is somehow edible. However, the effects on it on our body is not that good. As well as livelihood sustainability because um, on us, noong unang panahon, parang ang tinitirahan ng ating mga indigenous people are out of bamboos or woods and other MIPAS kung saan it is natural wherein it was get or driven in our biodiversity. Next is biodiversity provides important resources for medical research. So naturally, researchers get sources or other information within our biodiversity because it is natural, as well as they are recycling the ideas that biodiversity is somehow very useful within the creation of another product. And next, biodiversity provides important resources for traditional and modern medicine. So, simply, sabihin na natin the existing medicines that we are using right now derive from the sources for our traditional medicines. So that includes example is our lagundi na we are intaking if we have cough or especially for kids because it can be in a syrup form or in a capsule form that contain a constituent na nakakatulong para ma-ease yung ating coughing. And next is biodiversity plays a role in regulation and control of infectious diseases because it is natural. It regulates and control the contagious or diseases that is surrounding within our environment. And lastly, biodiversity has social, cultural, and spiritual importance within the community because after all, we are all came from the natural way of living. That's why without biodiversity, we can no longer socially interact with each other culturally because we are not being unite with one society. And because of the existence of biodiversity, it says that an awareness of environmental values and respect for other species has been associated with reduced propensity rather towards antisocial behavior in children, especially in young adults. And that includes the biodiversity and healthy society. So next, reporter.
Now we have already learned about biodiversity and its connection to our lives. From the rainforest to the depths of the oceans, biodiversity shapes our planet. Yet, amid this beauty, there are threats that jeopardize this delicate balance. Now we will dive into these challenges and unravel how they impact not just the environment but also our societies. So presented on the slide are the threats to biodiversity. Among these are habitat loss, overharvesting, invasive species, and climate change. These are the actions that put the variety and abundance of life on Earth at risk. Next, let's proceed to the first threat, and that is habitat loss. So, if you picture a world where forests disappear, what do you think will happen to those creatures that call those places home? What about those species who can't adapt? So, that is why habitat loss is a threat to biodiversity. As humans, we can rely on technology to modify our environment and make it habitable, but other species don't have this ability. So, the elimination of their habitats will lead to their death. So, an example for this species is the tiger that is known for its dependence on forest habitats, and it doesn't have the capability to adapt to human-built environments. So, if there will be deforestation and habitat fragmentation, their survival will be threatened. And their entire habitat removal will result in their extinction unless they can adapt to human-built environments. Yes, there are other species that can adapt to human-built environments, just like the rock dove, which can thrive on urban areas while nesting on buildings, so they are highly resilient to habitat loss. So to protect and restore natural habitats, we can do this through sustainable land use practices and promoting urban planning that considers wildlife corridors and green spaces. Next, for another threat, next we have overharvesting. So if you think about the riches of the land and the bounty of the seas, however, greed can deplete those resources beyond repair. So how can we ensure that the future generations can still enjoy the abundance of nature? So here we will reflect on the importance of sustainable practices in harvesting our planet's treasures for this threat of overharvesting. So these three, the overhunting, overfishing, and overharvesting, have killed off numerous species over the past several hundred years. First, the overhunting leads to decline in wildlife populations. Overfishing depletes fish populations, while overharvesting of resources results in habitat destruction. So the poaching and other forms of hunting for profit increase the risk for extinction. And this extinction of apex predators can have catastrophic consequences. So when we say apex predators, these are predators at the top of a food chain. An example for this are the sharks, which are apex predators in marine ecosystems. So if they become extinct, they can trigger increase in the populations of their mesopredators like rays and octopuses, which in turn can cause a decline in their prey species such as shellfish and sea urchins. So ultimately, the balance of the entire marine food web is disrupted. So for us to help prevent the overexploitation of our natural resources, we can implement quotas for fishing and hunting and support local communities in adopting alternative livelihoods. Next, another threat to biodiversity are the invasive species. So, if you imagine a foreign visitor wreaking havoc in a new land, that's the reality of invasive species. But how do you think they thrive and what havoc do they wreak? Now we will explore how these unexpected guests reshape ecosystems and threaten the native species. So, these exotic species have been intentionally or unintentionally introduced by humans into an ecosystem in which they did not evolve. So most of the introductions failed because of the low number of individuals introduced and the poor adaptation to the ecosystem that they entered. However, there are some species that have characteristics that can make them especially successful in the new ecosystem. So those exotic species undergo dramatic population increases in their new habitat and reset the ecological conditions in the new environment. So with this, the species that exist there will be threatened, and when this happens, the exotic species also becomes invasive species. An example for this species is the Burmese phyton, which are natives to Southeast Asia. So they were introduced to Florida, USA through the pet trade, and due to their adaptability, quickly established themselves in the state's ecosystems. And there, they have threatened native species through competition for resources and then predation or disease. Now, for us to prevent the introduction of invasive species, we can do this through stricter biosecurity measures and controlling their spread through targeted management efforts. This can mitigate their impact on native ecosystems. Next, for the last threat to biodiversity, let's talk about the elephant in the room, climate change. How do you think the rising temperatures and shifting climates affect our life on Earth? And from altering habitats to disrupting crucial ecological timings, the ripple effects are just profound. Now let's discuss these changes and the adaptation to a warmer world. So the anthropogenic warming and the climate change that we experience presently is recognized as a major extinction threat, particularly when combined with threats such as habitat loss. And the anthropogenic warming has been observed is due to the past continuing emission of greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide and methane, into the atmosphere caused by the burning of fossil fuels and deforestation. And the scientists agree that the present warming trend is caused by humans, and some of the likely effects include dramatic and dangerous climate changes in the coming decades. So this warming trend will shift colder climates toward the north and south poles, forcing the species to move, if possible, with their adapted climate norms. So if this happens, the shifting ranges will impose new competitive regimes on species as they find themselves in contact with other species not present in their historic range. So one such unexpected species that I can say for this one is the contact between polar bears and grizzly bears, because previously these two species has had separate ranges. However, now their ranges are overlapping and there are documented cases of these two species meeting and producing viable offspring. Also, scientists have already documented many contemporary mismatches to shifts in resource availability and timing. So for us to combat this climate change, we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by transitioning to renewable energy resources and promoting energy efficiency. So that's it for the threats. And as I wrap up this topic, remember that each action we take, big or small, shapes the future of our planet and the generations to come. Together, let us strive for a healthier, more vibrant world, one where biodiversity thrives and humanity flourishes.
Now let's proceed to discover genetically modified organisms or GMOs. Next. Biotechnology is a set of techniques that involves the use of biological processes and living organisms for industry, agricultural, or other activities. So in short, biotechnology is ang paggamit ng biology para makapag-develop ng new products, methods, and organisms intended to improve human health and society. Madalas din tinatawag ang biotechnology as biotech. Ito ay nag-exist na since the beginning of civilization with the domestication of plants, animals, and discovery of fermentation. Next. So its purpose is to modify the natural and biological processes of living organisms without necessarily altering the genes or genetic construct of the living organisms. So, ang biotechnology ay isang technology based on biology na nakaharness and biomolecular process para pag-develop ng technologies and products that helps improve our lives and the health of our planet. Next. So, it has four industrial processes based on biological systems, namely cell and tissue culture, fermentation, enzyme technology, genetic engineering, or modern technology. So when it comes to cell culture, ito ay isang process na kung saan yung cells ay nag-grow under controlled conditions, generally outside their natural environment. On the other hand, tissue culture ay isang method ng biological research na kung saan yung fragments ng tissue from an animal or plant ay tinatransfer to an artificial environment in which they can continue to survive and function. Next is fermentation. Ito ay chemical processes by which yung molecules such as glucose are broken down anaerobically. Then, enzyme technology, ito ay production, isolation, purification, and use of enzymes either in the soluble or immobilized form for the benefit of the humankind. So, for thousands of years, humans have been using traditional modification methods to breed plants and animals with more desirable traits. And these traditional methods include selective breeding and crossbreeding. So, most of the foods today were created through traditional breeding methods, which is time-consuming and complex, which means it is difficult to make very specific changes. That's why we have genetic engineering or modern technology. Next. So, genetic engineering or modern technology is also known as DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid technology. It allows the isolation and transfer of genes coding specific characteristics between living organisms to produce a new living organism that expresses the desired characteristics of both organisms. Ang modern applications ng biotechnology ay nag-work most often through genetic engineering, which is also yun nga known as recombinant DNA technology. Ang genetic engineering ay nag-work through modifying or interacting with the genetic cell structures. Kasi bawat cells ng animal or plant ay nagko-contain ng genes na nagpo-produce ng proteins, and itong proteins ito ang nag-determine ng characteristics of the organisms. So through modifying or interacting with the genes, nai-strengthen ng mga scientists ang characteristics of an organism or create an entirely new organisms. So these modified and new organisms may be beneficial to humans, such as crops with higher yields or increased resistance to drought. So genetic engineering also enables genetic modification and cloning of animals, which is two controversial developments. Next. So genetically modified organisms or GMOs is the common term used for genetically engineered organisms. Genetic engineering provide similar changes to traditional modification, but in a more specific way and shorter amount of time needed. So next is Alex Lentino to discuss the intended uses of GMOs.
So, thank you, Ms. Samoy. But before we start with the discussion of the intended uses of GMOs in terms of biomedicine, agriculture, and in farm or food animals, let me just explain briefly what is GMO. So, GMO or genetically modified organism has become the common term consumers and popular media use to describe foods that have been created through genetic engineering. So, yung process ng genetic engineering, it involves first identifying the genetic information or yung gene na nagbibigay din sa isang organism ng kanilang desired trait. Next is copying that information from the organism that has the trait. And lastly, inserting that information into the DNA of another organism. So now that we have a brief understanding about what GMO is, let's move on to its uses. So first is in biomedicine or biomedical. So In biomedicine, it is used as specific models for many different human diseases, including multiple infectious diseases such as HIV, immune system defects, blood and metabolic disorders, muscular dystrophy, and cancer immunotherapies, among others. So, yung technique na ginagamit in genetic engineering, nag-lead siya sa production ng mga products na importante in the medical field. For example is yung sa insulin from cows and pigs para sa mga patients with diabetes. Pero nowadays, pwede na rin siyang gawin or pwede na rin siyang mangyari, pwede na rin siyang manggaling sa mga tao. So sa process na ito, ini-insert sa isang bacteria yung pro-insulin, for example ay sa E. coli cells. Then from there, magpo-produce na ng insulin yung bacteria which can then be isolated para mabigay siya sa mga patients with diabetes. Another example is gene modification of humans via gene therapy. So sa pag-modify ng genes ng isang tao, pwede siya maging treatment option para sa mga diseases like rare metabolic disorders or cancers. So isang example dito is yung treatment for sickle cell anemia. So yung sickle cell anemia kasi, it is caused by a genetic mutation. So perfect candidate talaga siya for gene therapy, specifically yung CRISPR mediated gene therapy. So in simple terms, sa treatment na ito, ina-extract yung hematopoietic stem cells from the patient. Then, after nun, yung na-extract na stem cells, i-correct siya or i-edit para maayos yung mga faulty cells. Then, after nun, ibabalik na yung stem cells inside the body of the patient through intravenous drip. And from there, dapat magkaroon na ng permanent production ng normal red blood cells. So, yung patuloy na pag-evolve ng paggamit ng GMOs in biomedicine holds the promise that for innovative treatments para sa patuloy na pag-improve ng ating kalusugan. Now, let's move on to farm or food animals. So, dito, it is engineering of animals used for food. Examples include chicken, cows, pigs, goats, cattle, yan. So, yung mga pigs, they have been engineered to grow faster and to produce more meat with less feed. So, with less feed. And also, yung composition din ng pork na napoproduce nila is in-improve para mas healthy sila for human consumption. So, yung mga scientists, they have paid particular attention to pig health para ma-raise pa yung survival rates nila and para ma-reduce din yung incidence na ma-infect sila ng iba't ibang mga sakit. Same sa mga pigs, yung mga sheep naman, they have been modified para ma-reduce yung mortality rates nila due to infections from bacteria or lethal viruses. So, isang reason why livestock are being continually modified is para ma-improve yung traits nila na we as human need. So, kasama dito yung growth rate nila, yung quality ng meat, milk consumption, and if resistant ba sila sa iba't ibang diseases para ma-ensure yung survival nila. And lastly is in agriculture. So, genetic engineering provides a quicker and more precise way to achieve the same goal in one generation. So, isang reason kung bakit patuloy namin na-modify ang mga crops is na-increase kasi yung mga na-harvest na crops and nataas din yung nutritional value nila and mas matagal silang mabulok. Meron din namang mga crops na minodify para hindi na kinakailangan ng mga chemical insecticides, making it safer to consume. Meron ding mga genetically modified plants na specifically engineered para maging resistant to a chemical herbicide. So yung mga crops na to, they enable effective chemical control of weeds which is useful para hindi na kailangang araruhin pa yung lupa kung saan magtatanim. As a result to this, dahil nga hindi na kailangan mag-araro, nakakatulong siya para ma-prevent yung soil erosion. And now, we have here Miss MJ Klein to discuss some of the genetically modified organisms developed in the Philippines.
So we will now proceed to some genetically modified organisms that is developed in the Philippines. So first is longer lasting papaya. So during the 1950s, the papaya ring spot virus severely impacts the papaya industry. So the Hawaiian-born scientists developed a genetically modified papaya known as the rainbow papaya, which is designed to be resistant to the virus. So encouraged by the same strategy, the Philippines also conducted a study wherein uh, they make the local variety to be also resistant to the PRSP. So the Institute of Plant Breeding in the UP developed delayed ripening papaya that's resistant to the ring spot virus. So the initial project, assisted by the Australian government, developed a papaya variety with a 14-day shell life, or double the usual 6 days. Next. So for the next GMO is the protein-enriched copra meal, which is used as a feed for tilapia, milkfish, and shrimp aquaculture. So a copra meal is an important feed resource in the Philippines. So in 2014, the Philippines produced about 750 metric tons of copra meal as coconut byproduct, and 60% of this was locally utilized mainly as animal feed. So it is produced from a ripe fruit of coconut palm, and it is mixed with soybean meal due to its high protein content, and it is digestible unlike the copra meal. So next, there are several concerns on the use of soybean meal as a feeding ingredient. So to address the issue while ensuring the quality of animal feeds, the Philippine Council for Agriculture, Aquatic, and Natural Resources Research and Development of the Department of Science and Technology, or the DOST card, supported a research and development programs on the feed resources under its Industry Strategic Science and Technology Program, or the ISP. So one such program is the PECM, or Protein Enriched Copra Meal, that is developed by the National Institute of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, or the UPLB Biotech. So through the solid state fermentation technology, the PECM is enriched with microorganisms that increase the protein content of the copra meal to about 36 to 44% crude protein content, comparable to the 46% of the soybean meal. And PECM is more beneficial to agricultural animals due to its high digestibility, nutrient quality, and um, it is used as a source of quality protein. So next. So additionally, there are a group of researchers from the Institute of Aquaculture, College of Fisheries and Ocean Sciences of the University of the Philippines Visayas that studied the possibility of substituting 50% of soybean meal as a major feed protein source with PECM. Next. So tomato leaf curl virus, or TOL-CV resistant variety. So tomato was the leading vegetable crop in the country in the terms of area planted until 1990. And in 1997, there is a decline in the production due to the pests and diseases, as well as unfavorable climatic conditions, especially during off-season months. So the use of pesticides proved to be costly and does not warranty a sustainable protection, and it is hazardous to both the human health and the environment. So the use of the resistant varieties offers the most effective and practical strategy to overcome the disease. So next. So the tall CV are considered as the most damaging to the tomato production worldwide, causing the 50 to 100% yield loss. So the Institute of Plant Breeding, or the IPB of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, or UPLB, has developed tomato breeding line resistant to tall CV in the hope of reviving tomatoes' robust production in the country. Next. So the tall CV resistance in the donor parental lines, hybrids, and the derived lines from the initial hybrids was verified by exposing the plants to the tall CV Laguna, isolate and by marker-assisted selection or the mass. So, ang mass can predict even at early stage seedling whether the plant will grow to express a trait of interest based on the mere presence or absence of gene markers. So, ang gene markers naman are short for the unique DNA sequence that is located near the DNA sequence of the gene responsible for the desired physical characteristic or trait in each generation of the plants being produced. And the markers for the genes that is responsible for the resistance of tall CV confirm successful transfer of the resistant gene in the genetic makeup of the developed tomato lines. So yung lines na to is rated as the highly resistant due to the absence or very minimal observed symptoms of the infection detected for the presence of tall CV resistance gene. The markers were considered the candidate for tall CV resistant breeding materials. Next. So BT corn, it was introduced as a practical, ecological, sustainable solution for poor corn farmers. So it was engineered to specifically resistant to the Asian corn borer or ACB, Australia furnicalis or the guinea, and the most devastating corn pest in the industry. So the BT corn has a certain gene from naturally occurring soil bacterium, the Bacillus thuringiensis or the BT. So this gene codes for the delta endotoxin, which when eaten by specific target insects such as the Asian corn borer and other pests, disrupts the insect's digestive system by developing the little holes in the insect's midgut, and the adoption rate of the biotech maize in 2015 is 63%. So for the next reporter,
Now let's discuss the potential benefits of GM crops. Next. So when we talk about agriculture, the integration of genetically modified crops or GM crops has sparked both fascination and controversy. So a lot of people became fascinated with it and became curious about the concept of GM crops into the agricultural sector, but as well as it also sparked some controversy since some people does not support this concept. So with advances in biotechnology, these crops offer promising solutions to various agricultural challenges and problems na kinakaharap ng ating society. So from pest resistance to increased nutritional value. While debates continue to swirl and circulate around their safety and ethical implications, understanding the potential benefits of GM crops is important para mas maging informed tayo about sa discourse and decision making when it comes to it. And in here, we will explore the multifaceted advantages that GM crops bring to the table, shedding light on their shaping the future of global agriculture and food security. So the first one, we have genetically modified crops holds the promise of enhancing nutritional quality sa ating food supply. So for instance, rice can be fortified with provitamin A and iron, which addresses deficiencies in these essential nutrients. Corn can also be engineered to contain high levels of lysine and tryptophan, which alam naman natin ay important amino acids for human health. And vegetables can also be modified to have increased levels of beta-carotene and lycopene, which promotes better vision and heart health. Legumes as well can be enhanced with sulfur-containing amino acids, which contributes to muscle growth and overall wellness. Additionally, sweet potatoes can be genetically modified to have higher protein content, which provides a valuable source of sustenance. So these advancements in genetic modification offer the potential to address nutritional deficiencies para mas ma-improve pa yung public health on a global scale. Now, for the second one, engineering pest or disease resistance in important crops kagaya ng rice, corn, various vegetables, sweet potato, and others ay mahalaga, especially for developing countries. So, by genetically modifying these crops para ma-resist yung pests and diseases, so yung mga farmers or yung mga sasaka, they are able to protect their harvest from devastating losses. Kasi, syempre, isa sa mga nagiging reason kung bakit nalilimit yung mga magsasaka natin is because of pests and diseases na nakaka-apekto sa kanilang hanap buhay. So because of this, mas may ensure yung food security sa mga komunidad na nagre-rely heavily on agriculture or kung saan sa agriculture or mga pananim na mula ang pangunahin nila kakitaan or kinakain. So this technology offers a sustainable solution para makombat yung crop diseases, ultimately contributing to improved livelihoods or hanap buhay as well as the economic stability in developed regions. Next. So for the third one, edible vaccines are designed to offer a cost-effective immunization strategy, particularly beneficial for developing nations. So for example, bananas can be engineered to contain antigens of pathogens na responsible for diseases kagaya ng diarrhea that are undergoing clinical trials. Additionally, there are efforts to develop vaccine targeted at preventing gastroenteritis in hogs and hepatitis B in humans. So, this innovative approaches holds promise for improving vaccination accessibility and effectiveness, especially sa mga regions na may limited access sa healthcare resources. Now, for the fourth one, antibodies engineered and produced in plants represent a novel approach to producing therapeutic proteins. So, based on pag-aaral, it shows that antibodies expressed in plants such as potato, tobacco, and rapeseed can maintain stability and activity. However, there is a need to increase the expression levels to enhance their efficacy further, and this research holds potential for developing cost-effective and scalable methods for producing antibodies, kung saan it paves the way for innovative treatments for various diseases. Next. Now, research on crops capable of extracting and detoxifying pollutants from the environment, kagaya ng heavy metals, they faces challenges due to a lack of fundamental understanding of molecular mechanisms involved sa uptake and storage of inorganics in plants. So, despite the potential benefits sa paggamit ng plants to remedy contaminated soils, the knowledge of how plants absorb and store pollutants hampers progress in this field, and further investigation into the molecular processes involved is essential para mas ma-unlock pa yung full potential of using crops for environmental cleanup. Now, for the sixth potential benefit, crops engineered to produce pure toxic residues, kagaya ng corn with low phytate levels, they offer environmental benefits. So, phytate complex as phosphorus makes it unavailable for absorption by non-ruminants, reducing phosphate excretion and also mitigating water pollution. So, this innovation, it promotes a sustainable agriculture, which by minimizing the environmental impact of agricultural runoff. Next. Now, lastly, the production of alternative polymers in plants offers a renewable and biodegradable solution to replace yung mga traditional plastics and petrochemical products. So, by harnessing plant-based materials, ito mga polymers ito, they can be sustainably sourced and offer the potential to reduce dependence on non-renewable resources. Additionally, their biodegradability ensures minimal environmental impact, which contributes to efforts to mitigate plastic pollution at mas makapag-promote ng more sustainable agricultural environment and agricultural future for the society. Now, here's Monique to discuss the risk related to the use of genetically modified organisms.
So, ayun na nga, kung may positive effect, syempre meron ding negative effect, and these are the risks related to the use of genetically modified organisms. So, there are 8. First is, one can have a risk of having genetic contamination or interbreeding. This is because the introduction of genetically modified organisms into the environment poses the risk of interbreeding with wild types or sexually compatible relatives. Because although the novel traits initially introduced may disappear in wild populations and then they confer a selective advantage, there is also the potential for the development of tolerance abilities in wild types. And yung evolution na yun ay maaaring makapag-alter or makapagpabago ng ecological relationships and behavior ng mga native species. Second risk is the competition with natural species. The fast growth of GMOs gives them an edge over native species na potentially makapag-lead sa invasive spread nito. And this disrupts ecosystems, reduces biodiversity, and causes economic damage by outcompeting the native organisms and reducing agricultural productivity. So, this rapid expansion of GMOs poses significant ecological and economic risks when they become invasive. Third risk is increased selection pressure on target and non-target organisms. So, ang introduction ng genetically modified organisms into an ecosystem can heighten the pressure on both the target and non-target species na nag-a-adjust sa mga altered conditions. And the introduction of GMOs can heighten the pressure, leading to the emergence of resistant populations that reshape the ecological relationship. This emergence of resistant populations is a crucial aspect of GMO interactions within the ecosystems, with the implications for biodiversity conservation and agricultural sustainability. Another risk is the ecosystem impact. So, nabanggit nga kanina yung ecosystem and naapektuhan siya. So, pagka nagkaroon ng changes in a single species can have profound effects. Like, it can trigger a domino effect. And alam naman natin, kapag may domino effect, ay nag-start siya sa one cause, then sunod-sunod na. It causes a domino effect on the entire ecosystem, thus affecting the abundance, behavior, and interactions of the other species. And that effect can disrupt the ecological balance and cause damage to the ecosystem. And impossibility of follow-up is also a risk, because once genetically modified organisms are introduced into the environment, they are virtually impossible to completely eliminate, similar to challenges faced with naturally or conventionally bred species. GMOs are not inherently safe or beneficial and should not be subject to less scrutiny. One specific risk associated with GMOs is the potential for horizontal gene transfer, or the HGT, where genes from GMOs can be transferred to other organisms through processes like transformation, transduction, and conjugation. And the transfer of genes from GMOs to other organisms raises concerns about unintended consequences on human health and the environment, as this total traits could potentially cause harm. And loss of management control measures is also a risk, because regulatory measures or regulatory approvals for field trials of GMOs are typically included in the measures to limit their release in space and time to minimize the risk. However, HGT presents a significant challenge to those efforts. HGT can lead to transfer of introduced genes from GMOs to other species, creating new GMOs with unforeseen traits. Thus, despite the strict controls, the possibility of HGT introduces uncertainty and underscoring the need for ongoing monitoring and adaptation of regulatory frameworks. Long-term effects can also be a risk, because HGT can have long-term and severe consequences, taking thousands of generations for transferred genes to dominate. And that gradual process underscores the potential for delayed impacts on ecosystems, and especially when favorable environmental conditions prolong the adverse effects. Lastly, the risk of having antibiotic resistance and horizontal gene transfer. Concerns have arisen over the use of antibiotic resistance genes in early genetically modified crops. And there's a worry that these genes could also be transferred to bacteria within the human gut, potentially leading to the development of antibiotic resistant strains. And it could also be transferred to bacteria present in the soil, increasing the risk of antibiotic resistance in environmental microorganisms. And that poses a risk or threat to public health and environmental integrity, highlighting the need for careful assessment and monitoring of GM crop impact. So that's all for the risks related to the use of genetically modified organisms.
Now, let's move on to the genetically modified organisms and its impact on biodiversity. So So, the impact of GMOs on biodiversity is widely debated. So, ang ating mga GMOs ay pinagdedebatehan ng mga researchers kung nararapat ba sila gamitin o hindi. So, in this slide, it's gonna tackle the potential benefits and positive effects of GMOs on biodiversity. So, pro-GMO researchers maintain that if crops are genetically modified for pest resistance, farmers can reduce their reliance on insecticides. So, ang una, when we use GMOs or farmers use GMOs, di na kailangan ng mga farmers gumamit ng mga insecticides. So, when the use of insecticides are lessened, local fauna or secondary pests such as birds and rodents ay hindi mamamatay or hindi malalason sa mga insecticides kasi nabawasan nga yung pag-unti ng mga insecticides. And also, could also push these GMOs can grow in under harsh weather conditions like droughts or floods. And examples of these drought-resistant and flood-resistant crops are the flood-resistant rice or the sub-1 rice and the drought-tolerant corn and soybeans. GMO skeptics have argued that up to 75% of plant genetic diversity has been lost since farmers switched to uniform GM crop varieties. So here I will explain the negative sides of or the negative effects of GMOs in biodiversity. So ang unang argument dito ay that most farmers use GMOs and kukunti na lang ang gumagamit ng mga or nagtatanim ng mga organic crops. So, pagkaunti na gumagamit na ng mga organic crops, baka maging less din yung reproduction ng mga organic crops nito at pwede din ito mag-lead sa extinction ng mga organic crops which will cause imbalance to the diversity of the plants. So a farmer who wishes to continue using a non-GM seed variety or who decides to maintain the organic status of his crops must adopt expensive measures to protect his crops from cross-pollination with his neighbor's GM crops. So another argument na ayaw ng mga farmers na gumamit ng GMO crops kasi gusto nilang panatilihin ang pagpa-plant ng mga organic crops or natural crops. Kasi organic crops, one of the reasons na gusto ng mga farmers na organic crops lang ang kanilang palakihin because organic crops are sold on a higher price than GMO crops. And one of the example of natural crops that are being planted by farmers are natural corn or organic maize, which ayaw ng mga farmers na gumamit ng BT corn or Bacillus thuringiensis corn or palapit yung BT corn sa kanilang natural or organic corn. Pests may evolve to target monoculture of popular and overused crop varieties. Moreover, it has been argued that the evolution of glyphosate-resistant weeds has required farmers to make ever greater use of glyphosate, the toxicity of which poses dangers for human health. So, another argument kung bakit na-harm ng GMO yung ating biodiversity ay another downside din ng thoroughly usage of GMOs ay pwede din mag-evolve yung pests. So, dito, tungkol dun sa glyphosate. So, ang glyphosate ay ginagamit sa pagpatay ng mga weeds na maaaring makatake ng nutrients mula sa crops. So, dahil doon, may mga scientists bumuo ng glyphosate-resistant crops which are genetically modified. And an example of glyphosate-resistant crops are the round-ready crops which include soybeans, cotton, canola, and sugar beets. So pag meron mga weeds na nasa paligid ng glyphosate-resistant crops, ay pwedeng gumamit ng mga farmers ng glyphosate para patayin ng weeds. Paano kapag nakapag-adapt sa situation yung weeds at na-absorb ang nutrients which have the traits or the genes of the glyphosate-resistant crops, pwede yung mga weeds na yon, mga ligaw na damo ay maging glyphosate-resistant din. So, yun ang example na pwedeng na downside ng GMOs, which is yung pests or yung weeds ay nag-evolve para maging resistant siya sa kung anumang insecticide or na pumatay sa kanya. Then, another downside of GM crops or another negative effect of it on biodiversity is it can also harm insect species that are not pests. So what do we mean by that? So ang tutukoy dito na insect species ay hindi talaga sila pests. Kumbaga kung ito yung mga insects na parang kumakain ng GM crops pero hindi sila nagdudulot ng major damage katulad ng mga diseases. So if in any case na nadala ng mga insects ang pollen ng mga GM crops na to, ay pwedeng mag-lead to toxicity to the population of that insect group and can lead to extinction. And also, it has been stated that GMOs can cause 106 unanticipated risks to insects, water, life, and soil. Okay. So to summarize the impacts of genetically modified organisms on biodiversity, it has its positive effects and negative effects. So the positive effects of genetically modified organisms on biodiversity is that farmers don't need to use insecticides, and less usage of insecticides will not harm secondary pests like birds and rodents. And also, genetically modified organisms can grow under harsh conditions when, like, for example, when the weather or the environment has floods or drought. Then we have also our negative effects on biodiversity, in which because some examples like farmers tend to use more GMOs than organic crops, which can lead to less plant diversity. And if GMOs contaminate or cross-pollinate with organic crops, that will be a problem for those farmers that intended to only sell organic crops, because there are cases that if GM crops and organic crops reproduce, it will result to an offspring of a GM crop which is undesired by the farmers. And also, another downside of the GMO crops is that it can lead to an extinction of insects which are not pests.